Hello and welcome to episode 5 of the Voice Break podcast. My guest here today, Trevor, is bringing the world together in an amazing way. Trevor, thank you so much for being on here today. So nice to meet you and we're eager to get started.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really grateful and can't wait to contribute to your audience.
Beautiful. So, Trevor, actually, you do so many different things. I mean, I wouldn't even call you a jack of all trades. It's just that all trades will fit into what you do. So tell me a little more about that.
Yeah. So I have a coaching business. So anything really like, people like to put labels on things in this society. So I can go by a life coach, a business coach, relationship coach, personal development coach, mindset coach. But really all of it boils down to a couple things of your thoughts, your beliefs, and then who you're being. So those are the three bases of all of those things that I found anyways. So everyone has thoughts, whether you're, a child all the way up to some successful CEO. We all have thoughts, beliefs that have shaped our lives and our experiences. And it's uncovering those to ultimately, if you feel not fulfilled in some part of your life, that it's contributing to a thought, belief, quote unquote, your mindset at the end of the day. So it all fits together, and everyone tells me niche down, niche down, niche down. This has no niche because it's just universal. So
I'm really happy you said that. That's actually very inspiring to me personally, because where I've been in, where I fit in or lack of fitting in the singing and the music and all that stuff, and I find that the more I just kind of let people label me but not label myself as of like what I am, more exploring my identity, the more it resonates into success outwards.
Yep.
So that's interesting. You said three things, and one of them really stuck with me, which is who you're being. Haven't heard anything like that before. Tell me a little about that.
Yeah. So everyone sees the external thing that happens in your life, right? It's like, hey, I got fired from my job. This person did that to me. I don't know. Think of anything. I got a raise, I got a promotion, something even positive, right? But at the end of the day, that external thing that happens, that situation, that experience in your life, ultimately is projected out from your inner being, right? So who are you being that caused you to create that action, which then that action produced a result or something in the world that we see or experience? So really who you're being is creating these habits, these actions that are ultimately producing these results, right? So my own personal experience, I got let go of 2 jobs in 2020, right? First job I got let go of, it was everyone else's fault. It was the company, it was the territory, it was whatever. The second job that I got let go of, I sat in my closet and just reflected, I'm the main component here, right? I'm the only one that got let go of 2 jobs within a year. I reflected, and it was really who I was being, right? I was like, well, I wasn't making phone calls. I was putting a lot of blame on myself, like no phone calls. Well, the territory manager, whatever it might be. But at the end of the day, it all reflected on who I was being. I was procrastinating. I was being someone that procrastinated because I didn't want to make those calls because it made me uncomfortable, right? So being able to reflect on who I was being and then correlating it to the actions that I actually took, which then caused me to get let go, that's where I was like, man, this opens up a whole new door and gives me the power to create my next opportunity and who I want to be and shape who I want to be to now become successful, right? In whatever role that I had. And that's kind of what I teach people too, is like, we are the creators of our reality, our life, our experiences, but it all boils down to basically who you're being at the end of the day.
That is masterful. It's a seldom understood concept.
Yep.
Actually, it's one of the things that bothers me most when I look out and even growing up. I felt intuitively there's this individuality that I need to live and that other people need to live, but the main factor in the fulfillment level is, are you being that? Are you living that life? And there's sometimes when we betray ourselves for one reason or another. So essentially, I guess what I'm getting at is I believe that there is a true individual for each person, like a true self. Does that resonate with you?
Absolutely. So if you get into all of that spirituality, we are all one within one thing, but we're all unique, right? So like, that's what people get hung up on, is like, well, I need to be an individual. Like, we're individuals thinking we're just on this island with nobody else around us. But really, it's we're all one within this big ocean, like a wave, right? Like, a wave is part of the ocean, but it's unique, right? Snowflake is part of snow, but each individual one is a unique shape and design. If you really look at it, that's what we are. And it's like, we all try and fit into this box, right? Of like, hey, you have to do this, you have to act this way, you have to talk this way. And that's what we're trying to teach our kids, is like, no, just be you, be unique. And it's tough when other people outside of you are telling you something different, right? You're not going to be successful. You're not valued. You're not enough. This is crazy. Why do you want to do this, right? And it's like, well, this is who I uniquely am and who intuitively I feel like I need to be. And when we aren't that, that's when we have that like discomfort in ourselves, and it never pans out until we get back and learn ourselves.
Absolutely. That is crazy. I'm so happy that you do this. I mean, I was reading on your profile about that we're all perfect. And then we learn and we're taught and we go astray.
Yep.
We have to get back to that.
For sure. And that's what I try and uncover in people. Some people want to hear it, some people don't. And you can't force it on anyone, right? They have to get to that point themselves to know there's something greater. I'm bigger than something greater. And literally, I tell people, like, you have to unlearn every single thing that you ever thought you knew. And that gives you the clean slate to be open-minded and allowed to be challenged a little bit further. Of like, you might not see it with your physical eyeballs, but it actually happens. It's just like gravity. We don't physically see gravity. Now we see the effect of gravity by us falling to the earth if we're high up, but you don't physically see it, but it's still happening. Whether you're a feather or whether you're a giant pyramid, right? Everything falls to the earth. So it's all within these things that it's like, be open-minded to things that you can't even see, because there's something greater out there.
I agree 100%. And man, it's so good that we met. I honestly don't even know how. I think maybe I saw a post of yours, or saw like a mutual connection.
I don't know. I'm on LinkedIn a lot, either friending you, messaging you, things like that, just to open up conversations. So, but it's clearly meant for a reason. Any person, individual thing is literally meant for you. Even the person that cut you off in the street and you get angry at them, that's for you to reflect on yourself. So whether positive or negative, I'm super glad we met as well.
I agree 100%.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting concept. It's kind of a neutral in a way. It's almost like Buddhist, that like the positive and the negative, the binary, it's a little more blurred, really.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, it's just your path forward.
Absolutely.
That's really interesting. First of all, I'm happy that you took initiative upon your own intuition to well, do what you felt is right for you to do. And everyone says, kind of like what you're saying, you're crazy doing that. What, you should niche down, you should do this, this is how it works with everything else. But you're you.
Yep.
It was your business.
Yeah. And I've noticed that when I'm not me, and do we all, I truly know who I am, or you have this belief of who you are, right? And then the knowing is like, no one can shake you, right? Now, we're all, even the greatest of the greats, are still trying to learn even further about themselves. So am I perfect at the core? Yes, I 100% believe that, right? We all are. But it's uncovering and peeling back those little beliefs and doubts that you have about yourself, where you message someone and they're like, you're crazy, man. What are you even talking about? And not being affected by it, right? And being like, that's okay. We're not on that wavelength yet. You're not there. I'm not going to force anything. Like, I give you all peace, gratitude, love. And when you're ready, I'll be here for you, type of thing. Instead of like, you get that pit in your stomach and that feeling and you're like, oh man, should I not have done that? Should I not have said that? Type of thing. I'm always going through it. And that was like the biggest part of starting my own business. And being an entrepreneur in general is like the biggest personal development journey that you're going to go on, because you're always questioning things, right, about yourself. And it's really battling through that over and over and over again. But keeping it within you, nothing outside of you really has control over you unless you let it have control over you.
That is very true. That is very true. It's really interesting that it seems like you and I kind of do the same thing in a different direction.
Yep.
Because I help people in all this way with their voices. And even just to what you were saying just now, one of the things that's always stumped me, that I've spent my entire singing journey trying to understand, is stage fright, because I've had my own experiences with it. And it's not what people think. It's like, oh, I have stage fright, and so people like condemn themselves to this curse. They're always going to have it. It's just permanent.
Yeah.
But how you respond, that makes all the difference.
Yeah. It's the fear, right? The fear of judgment of others is really what it is, and what it seems like it boils down to. Now, I've never been on stage, but I just reflect on like even the littlest thing, like even something coming on a podcast, right? People are going to hear me. Now eyeballs aren't physically looking at me in this present moment, right, as I'm speaking, but there's always that like I was cool, calm, collected coming on here because of the work that I've done, right, on myself, of like, this is who I am. Others, I don't judge myself, so I know others won't judge me with what I'm saying, right? Because that's the thing too, is once you're in that knowing of going on stage and you're a great singer, and you know you're going to perform well, that energy and vibration goes out into the crowd, and they're not going to look at you and judge you and whatnot too. So it's like that fear of judgment that I've found a lot, and that a lot of us go through is like, even if you judge someone else, then you're like, well, they're probably judging me too, right? But really, it's you're judging yourself versus judging them at the end of the day. But you're like, hey, if I mess up, what are people going to say? If I mess up this lyric, what is someone going to say? What if they don't like what I look like or what I wear? Like, everyone's comparing, judging, labeling. It's all the same thing, you know, at the end of the day. But if you're cool with yourself, nothing anyone says, does, looks at you is going to affect you at the end.
That is very true. And something I noticed of, well, what we've just talked about and what I've read from your profile is, there's a habitual fear. It's the repeated, the thought that keeps happening.
Yep.
And you're absolutely right that the way you treat other people is just you're treating yourself. What you see is a reflection. So
yeah,
100%. So I want to pivot a little bit.
Yeah.
My mom's family is from Tennessee, and I noticed you're born and raised, or
no, we moved down here about just over 2 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And why did you choose Tennessee?
Well, we got 4 boys, and if we stayed in the Midwest any longer, our house probably wouldn't have stood anymore. No, that was one reason, right? Be able to get outside in nature more often was a big thing. So that is the main reason, was like, we just felt called. And me and my wife, we always talk about this, right? Like, when we were growing up, and you can take it even to a deeper level, but when we were growing up, we're like, there's more than our hometowns, because many people just stay around, majority because it's comfort, right? They don't want to step outside of that comfort zone because they have everything that they've ever needed here. But we were always like, there's so much more. There's got to be so much more than this that we're living right now, and in this environment. And then we moved here, and we're all by ourselves. We don't have family, anything like that. But the people, the town we were drew to, and the house we were drawn to, like, they're our family now, to a point where, like, they're always watching the kids, like, them playing. You know, they invite us over. We have dinners. Like, it's just this, like, tight community. And we're like, this is, you know, it's not just the weather. It's not just the looks. But then it gets to the relationships, right? It's like, see, there's more. We can always have more here. And then you take it even a step further of, like, really what we were saying is there's more to us than what we were physically seeing, right? Like, it wasn't just the physical location we were at that we thought was there's a bigger picture. It was like, we're bigger than what we define ourselves as what we look like, how we live, and things like that. Like, that's where that oneness comes in, right? Of like, this is everything. This is what we've, like, the trees, the nature, the seasons, the sun, the ground, the grass, like the animals, us human beings, we're all just part of this same thing. And that's what's, like, slowly opened us up even further. Of, like, see how the layers go in, where it's like, well, it's just what I physically see and where I'm living. And then now it's like, I'm bigger than just Trevor. You know, like, there's a true me inside that's connected to everything else. And that's what we've found living here.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. I had a similar experience to that a few months ago. My mind was just kind of wandering. And I thought about how it was growing up. By the way, I live in my childhood house. I thought about how it was growing up, and how, like, it was almost like my house was their house, and we just kind of meandered, and it didn't matter. I
Hmm.
was like, man, I missed that. But then I was like, what if it's not like, what if that's not gone per se?
Hmm.
And for some reason, it just in an instant, I was like, I felt like everyone in the world. I was like, that's cool. It's like the walls didn't exist.
Yeah.
It's really that's
It's kind
something to explore.
it's kind of peaceful and freeing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's like
That's what you realize. It's like, what if, and people get scared, right? But you pose a question, what if everything you're experiencing really and who you are really doesn't matter? Like, what if you're truly bigger than all of this? And some people get scared, and I heard it on a different podcast, but like what they're saying is what they essentially came down to was people are afraid of being free, but truly what we always fight for freedom, right? That's what the United States does, is it's like, let's freedom of speech, freedom of medical care, freedom of whatever. But he posed it, and it made me and my wife think, like, we're actually afraid of freedom, because then what is there, right? Now there's no limits, and you get to create and be powerful and whatever, but it's like we don't like that. We want freedom, but then we're scared of it at the same time. So it's just it's something like what you said too, like all the walls are gone. We're all connected, we're all one. How does that make you feel? It's like, does it give you peace? Because it gives me peace knowing that. But other people, it creates an incongruency in their body where they're like, I don't really like that. You know?
yeah, and there exactly with that is the response,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because what you feel is how you respond,
Yep.
and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. And we run away from that feeling a lot of time. And what I've learned through my own coaching, my own development, reading, all of that stuff, is those feelings are actually the key to everything. So usually like if you get anxious, right, people are like, go work out, go do this, go distract yourself. But really, you're just putting a Band-Aid on what's truly there. And to feel that anxiousness, that nervousness, it's that pit in your stomach, that lump in your throat, like being able to know where you feel certain emotions opens up the door to be like, why? Why am I scared right now? Why am I sad? Why am I nervous? Well, it all links, like I said previously, to your thoughts and your beliefs and who you're being. So who you're being is created by your thoughts and your beliefs that you have. And it's like, okay, well, what am I thinking about? Well, I'm thinking about other people judging me once I go on stage. Like, that's why I'm anxious, right? And it's like, but why is that thought even popping up, right? Well, because I judge myself. And it's like, oh, okay. So I need to release the judgment of myself, right? So it's like these emotions, these feelings. So like, even when you go like on, say, anxiety medication, or you have a bum shoulder and you're getting injections into it, like really all that stuff is informing you of something deeper inside yourself, like a thought or a belief. Even a cold, even a flu, like you can connect it all to different thoughts and beliefs that you were having previously, whether it was weeks before, days before, or in that instance. Now that gets a little deeper.
Yeah.
Into some journeys, right? And people could question it. But if you really start to think about it, time you got hurt, like, man, I hurt my back. Well, what was going on in life? Or I slept funny and my neck hurts. What were you thinking about before you went to bed? What was physically going? Did you just get laid off? Yeah, I actually did get laid off, or I went through this tough time. And it's like, oh, okay. Well, let's focus on that spot. Like, envision yourself in that spot right now. What do you feel? Oh, I feel like a tingly in my stomach. Okay, let's go deeper into that now, and it kind of opens the door then to like, wow, it wasn't even how I slept, but it was, I'm, not feel like I'm not worthy enough for this type of thing. And then it frees you. It drops all the doors and it's like, wow, that's different, huh?
Yeah. The the manifestation, the
Mm-hmm.
manifestation of how you feel, be it positive or negative, be it stress or otherwise, it's incidental in nature.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is, as oftentimes it is in Western society, we give band-aid solutions,
Mm-hmm.
generally speaking.
Right.
But if we look deeper, it's like, well, the answer's obvious. The thing is, we haven't looked.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And
We
doing
see,
it stepwise like that is
yeah,
actually, it's experiential. It's the best way to learn.
yeah, it is. Yeah, you have to experience things in order to work through them or to understand or to learn more about yourself, right? Like it's all experiencing what is inside of you that's going on versus anything outside of you. What we see, even what we feel, like, right, the nervousness, the anxiousness, it's all still kind of that external part of us. It's the effect, and we need to find the cause. Whereas if someone's like, hey, I have a cold, right? Oh, here's some medication. I'm treating the effect. Well, why did you get that cold? What's happening? Like, there's a different cause. And you could look in the body, right? And be like, well, it was because of I had this virus or whatever. It's like, okay, well, but your husband or your wife didn't get the virus, right? So why didn't they? And then you start thinking and you're like, well, I don't know their immune system. It's like, okay, well, what boosted their immune system? Like, is it a thought and a belief behind it that they knew they weren't going to get sick from you and you had a fear that you were going to get sick, from your kids? Like, it's even going so deep like that too. And it's, you have like Western medicine, you got holistic, you got, then you get into like the spiritual side of things. Like everyone kind of has their own thing and everyone's on their own individual journey. And you can't force someone to jump to another one, right? They just have to be open-minded to it at the end of
That's
the day.
true.
Yeah.
That's true. Have you ever felt like there's someone that you really wanted them to see this thing that could actually help them through their situation, and they're just totally resistant to it?
We see it every day. Now that you become aware of things, you see it in friends, families, people online that you don't even know. And you say stuff. And again, it's either like, no. And they knock it off right away, or they're like, really? Like, you think it could? That are a little open-minded, but it's kind of just about planting seeds, right? Because you can't, in anything like this, go from 0 to 60. It's got to be like a slow, gradual, and kind of the experiential thing. You kind of have to experience it yourself. You can't necessarily just take someone's word and then be like, oh yeah, I totally believe it, because you don't truly know it at the end. It's only through experience that you can kind of do it. So you tell someone to work on something and they see a benefit from it, they're going to want more of it and be like, really, this worked? Like, this was really what was happening? I want more, type of thing. Like,
Yeah.
maybe I don't know what I know. And that's where the unlearning comes in, where it's like, okay, you know everything about XYZ. Let's completely unlearn that. My wife was a nurse. She went through nursing school. 2020 hit. We went on this journey. And she's literally unlearning everything that she was taught. And it's a big shock, right? On this journey of like, wow, everything that I thought I knew I don't think I know it all. Right? And it's a vulnerable position and it makes you feel very uncomfortable. But being in that uncomfortableness also helps expedite, your own journey of self-awareness.
Yeah. I've had a similar thing like that, and I think we all face kind of like a precipice kind of feeling. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're on the cliff of, do I believe, do I not believe? On the
Mm-hmm.
fence, I guess, but more so if you're before taking the leap, you feel like it's a cliff.
Yeah.
I find that, oh, this is interesting. I'd love to hear your opinion on this.
Mm-hmm.
So when I think back to my earliest memories, and I compare it to now, I realize there's one constant, and this is actually what helped me understand that who you are is more important than anything. And the one constant is I've always been who I am. And just like, that's me. And having that so deeply rooted, despite everything that's happened to myself and in the world around me, I'm still the same person.
Mm-hmm.
That gives me a sense of unshakableness. Have you, or do you experience that with your clients?
There gets to be a point, right, where like the more that you do it, the more that we talk, the more that you read and do your own stuff. Because I tell people everything's just information. Even the stuff that I give you is just information based on my experiences, knowledge, things like that. But don't just take my word for it, right? Like you have to go learn it extra too. Like even in my own coaching, when I went through it, he would tell us stuff and it doesn't make sense at that moment, right? And he'd always say, well, the teacher will be there when the student is ready, right? Like you hear it and it's like, what does that even mean, right? And then, like he tells you something and then 3 months later you're reading something else and you're like, oh, this is what he means. I wasn't ready to hear it yet. And now I'm ready to hear it, based on it. So like I tell people that too, but yeah, I mean, working with the clients, you eventually you get to that point, right? Of like, you've always been you, you will always be you. You are essentially eternal, right? At our true core. Now, will Trevor always be here? No. But who I am on the inside will always be here in this oneness. But yeah, it's like you get that piece of like, I'm always me at the end. It's just all these other people's stories and beliefs that get piled on top of who you are that you try and conform in and fit to. And usually I heard this too, you have to lose yourself before you can find yourself type of thing. So we come into this world as babies, right? Like so pure, no thoughts, beliefs, anything. And then we get all these piled up on top of us, and then we're living life, and now we're looking for all these things that we believe about ourselves or that others put on us, and you completely lose yourself. And then eventually that's where, like, say I come in, where it's like, let's find you again, right? But you have to unpeel all that stuff to get back to truly who you are. And then it's the unshakableness of, man, I've always been me. I've always been here. I just got strayed left and right throughout my years. And now I'm in who I am, who I'm being, at the end.
Yeah. That's totally Buddhist.
Yeah.
And I agree with it.
Yeah.
I've always felt a calling to Buddhism. As soon as I found out about like truly what it's about, I was like, dang, that sounds awesome.
I know. Wouldn't you want to live like that than like some of the life that we live now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially the falling astray kind of
Mm-hmm.
part of life. It's not great.
Mm-hmm.
It's not great because then we feel like hollow at that point.
Yep. We all get to it.
Yeah. I feel like with everything, every endeavor that I've taken, every skill, every new path has been a microcosm of that. Like it's all the bell curve
Mm-hmm.
where I don't know if you've seen the IQ bell curves where it's like the 40 IQ and then the, I don't know, 100 and the 140.
Yep.
And these two are parallel. They're saying the same thing. I've gone through that with everything. And the more I go through it, I'm like, everything is the same every time.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like at some point in your experience, you get to say, like, there's a pattern here, right? There's like the baby form, the teenage form, and the 20s, and then there's a pattern.
Yep.
Now I know you've seen it, but when you find the pattern, for people who maybe don't know if they have, what does that experience feel like?
That's one of the things that I always try and have people pick out first. Like, what are patterns that are happening in your life? All of it is you have this one experience, this life, right? But then there's going to be patterns that are shown in a bunch of different ways. It could be in money. It could be in relationships. It could be in religion. It could be in spirituality. It could be in your career. It could be as being a parent. Whatever it is, it's all like the perspective that you look at it from, you know? So there's going to be, we all come here learning these different lessons is what I've found, but they're through different perspectives. So someone might feel unworthy, but the experiences they experience in their life is related to money, right? Someone might feel unworthy, but theirs is through relationships. You know, someone might feel unworthy and it's showing up in their health. So it's picking the patterns though, because the patterns are telling you that there's still a thought and a belief and a lesson to learn. And it could be, hey, I make all this money and then I lose it. I make all this money and I lose it. I make all this money and I lose it. And it's like, how many times has that happened in your life? All the time. I start all these different businesses or go to get this new job or that job or the other thing. And it's like, let's take that pattern and let's try and like reverse engineer it to the thoughts and beliefs and who you're being in all those different cases, right? Same with a relationship. It's like, man, I can't have relationships with girls. I meet them and it's, you know, it goes well and then we break up. Or even like girlfriend to girlfriend, it's like, hey, like I get a really good group of friends and then they're all gone. And I get a really group of friends and I think it's like the things that I say to them and then they get pushed away. And it's like it's those little intricate patterns that you see where it's like, okay, this is happening. Why is this why are these patterns happening? Why is it going like this? Right? Let's try and keep it like this type of thing. And it's to me, it's always figuring out who are you being? Like what actions did you take? Right? Why did you take those actions? That's who you're being. And then who you're being is created by the thoughts and beliefs that you have. So do you not feel worthy or believe you're worthy of friends or love or money or success or power or whatever it might be? Everyone has their different perspectives that they're learning from in this life. And that's what me and my wife see it all the time. Hers is relationships, mine's always money, right? or a career, as you can tell. Get a job, get let go, get a job, get let go, right? In that instance. So it's stopping, it's trying to identify that pattern and stop it. But the world, the life, like everything vibrates, right? Everything is a frequency. The same with your life. It's always going like this. You just have to figure out that what it is, and then you reverse engineer it.
I just have to soak that in.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a lot.
That's good. That's good. I've thought recently about how, well, everything is everything.
Mm-hmm.
Every skill, there is a pattern because there's time.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, in my perspective, it's very easily taken in a musical sense. Because, well, to study music and to compose and stuff like that, you have to see it arranged in some way, shape, or form, even if you're not trained. Like Hans Zimmer, he sees it arranged.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee it. In a way, it's like, well, we can just like slap it on a timeline. These events in order, and then you see them repeat, and you're like, wait, there you go, there it is. If you just
Yep.
go like back to one, or back to whatever beat, so to speak,
Yep.
there's your source. That's where it happens.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then it sounds like from what I'm hearing, you also replace that.
Yep. You have to. So there's always like, people are always like, you can just talk positive to yourself. You can just talk self-love. Just love yourself. Just talk positive. Just do that. At the end of the day, yeah, you want to, and that's the goal. But if you have a deep-rooted thought and belief about yourself, if you're just saying that on top of that, nothing's going to move. Because the underlying belief has such a strong emotion attached to it that it will, your ego, your subconscious, your inner self, whatever it is always going to be like, talk and be like, you're not that, right? You're not worthy. I'm right here, right? So it's like, you have to get to that root and prove it wrong. That's what I've found lately, is you have to prove it wrong, like absolutely prove it wrong, and correct it with what is right. Like I say on my profile, you are perfect. You are joy. You are worthy. You are valued. You're abundant. That is what you are at your core, but you're told that you're not throughout your life. And that's where the belief comes in, right? So unlearn that belief that other people have told you, get back to your true self and look for the true, like who you truly are. That will slowly start to, quote unquote, rewire your brain and whatnot to get that knowing of who you truly are, right? That's really what it comes down to.
100%. And I would say, I wonder what you think of this. I would say who you are in and of itself is a pattern.
Mm-hmm. I would too. Yeah.
Cool. And you can only see a pattern if you're looking.
You have to be aware. If you are not aware, you have no idea what you need to correct. Mm. And that's like the number one thing. That's why when I first start with people, it's called like a thought audit, right? There's a couple things that I can start with people, but one of them is a thought audit, right? Sit down for 5-10 minutes, brain dump all your thoughts you have about yourself, positive, negative, whatever it is. Then you can either categorize them, or you even start this way. Hey, what are my thoughts about money? 90 seconds, write them all down. Because what pops into your mind first is what's in your subconscious, right? It's the thing that's already there that you had no idea about. What are my thoughts about money? What are my thoughts about relationship? What are my thoughts about and beliefs about my childhood, about my life now? Like, you can segment it a bunch of different ways, right? That's going to get it in the physical world on paper from your mind, because we typically, and it's purposeful, if you keep it in your mind, you're just going to keep forgetting it at the end of the day. So if you write that stuff down, it becomes manifested in the physical world, where now you see it with your eyeballs and you're like, wow, I really think about myself like this, you know? And now you even made that first initial awareness of, well, when this thought pops into my head, I already know that I'm aware of it. How do I disprove it wrong? Where did it start from? Type of thing. That's self-awareness 101, right? What is going on in my brain right now? And why? That's when you start seeing the patterns, right? Well, I don't think I'm worthy of money and success and relationships and love. And it's like, holy cow. Like, that's why my life is created and turning out the way it is right now, right? But that's just, I love starting with that, because it opens people. Now you have to be brutally honest with yourself, which some people aren't. But even if it's like, well, I don't think I'm good at singing. Even it's like, okay, that's surface level. Let's get in you, right? Why don't you believe that? Well, someone told me my voice was bad when I was in grade school. Okay, well, is that absolutely true? Do you know that to be true, that every single person who hears you sing thinks that you're a bad singer? Well, no, I can't absolutely know that. Okay, well, what would you be without that thought that, you're a bad singer? Well, I'd be free. I'd sing. I'd sing wherever I wanted to. And I was like, let's get you there, right? That's the outcome that you want, to be able to free and do whatever you want. So it's just, again, proving that belief wrong. Would every single person in this lifetime tell you that you're this? No, that's not true. Now, what would you be if you didn't have that thought about yourself? That's the future desired state, right? Now it's just trying to bridge that gap and keep proving yourself that you're not this and you're actually that. That's really the main work.
I agree.
Mhm.
That's really awesome. I thought of so many different things I want to like climb through. First of all, it came full circle because I was going to say this earlier. But Tony Robbins said, "Who are you uninterrupted?" Which is
Mhm.
fully encapsulated in what you just were saying. And I love the idea of you doing the thought audit that way. Just 5 to 10 minutes and just slap down everything that comes out. Like it's almost like a live feed, like you're just taking a pen
Mhm.
and rolling it, and you're like, oh, there's all this ink in there. You wouldn't have known.
Yeah.
So I find in my students and even in myself, there's there's this cycle of belief and action and belief.
Mm.
So when someone tells you your voice is awful or that you're not meant for business or you're crazy or this or that, if you act on that, ooh, now you believe it.
Yep.
Now you're in a cycle.
Mhm.
What I find is also in a kind of a more just a feeling aspect. When we act on the fear for like stage fright, then we believe it. But if we have a place where we feel unshakable, like we feel like there's fear doesn't exist here, then fear doesn't exist, right?
Mhm.
Do you ever approach things that way with your own clients?
Yeah. So one of the universal laws is like law of inspired action, and that's part of that action, right? Like if you an action, so the thought is the cause, but then you have to take action on that thought in order to actually create the effect. So it's like the same, again, it works positively and it works negatively. Where, all right, I have a thought that I'm a bad singer or that I'm going to mess up. I'm going to take the action to believe that, and I'm going to go on stage nervous. And then the effect is going to be, I didn't perform well. People are judging me, things like that. Now you have the thought of, like, I'm a great singer, right? Now you feel empowered and you have the emotion of like the action, like you go on stage empowered. Guess what the effect is going to be? A more positive outcome about yourself at the end of the day. So like there's again a number of different ways, but it's like thoughts, kind of how I break it down from the very beginning, right? Thoughts, beliefs, emotions are kind of all in the same realm, right? They all feed off each other. They all give it a superpower. Then those thoughts and beliefs are who are you being? Who are you being determines your action. Your action then produces the actual experience of life, right? Whatever you see. So again, if you keep that framework, hey, I felt I had a terrible performance. Okay, well, what did you do to think you did terrible? I did XYZ. Okay, well, who are you being? And then what thought produced that being, that action, and that outcome?
I love that. I love that you lay it out in a chronological order.
Mm-hmm.
I find that's been the most effective thing that I've ever come across myself. So when I realized, like, if we factor in time, then we start to see the whole picture. Like, oh
Mm-hmm.
God, it really makes sense.
Yeah.
And with that as well, well, there's something so good I wanted to say. Frick. So chronology really helps.
Yeah. It in this life, it helps people. Ideally you don't want to label people. Ideally you don't want to be like constricted to the time. But it's easier for people to digest when there's like a linear thing, and it is essentially that, like, we're in a cause and effect universe, right? Something gets up high, it's going to fall down, right? The cause is gravity, the effect is what we see, it falls to the ground,
Mhm.
so it is like that still. Like a thought is then going to turn, and a belief is going to turn into words that I speak, which is like the action, right? The words that I speak might trigger somebody or it might help them, but that's the effect at the end of the day. So it's like, it really is, cause and effect is pretty much linear. It's just dependent on the scenario, the perspective, and things that's actually going on.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you hone in on the nature of perspective, because perspective also changes,
Mm-hmm.
just like belief and just like really everything,
Yeah.
given time. And one thing I would love your perspective on, pun intended, is, well, I've always seen like the way that we describe, the way we label here, especially in Western society. I don't really know about languages other than the three-ish that I speak,
Yeah.
but we label things as being finite. It's not like you're this and that's it. But that doesn't take into account time or chronology
Right.
and the fact that change is guaranteed. So I just want to know what your perspective is on that.
We're definitely not finite. That's my perspective, right? We are definitely infinite. And even if you like think of little things, right? It's like, and this is where people I think get hung up a lot, is that we do believe we're finite. So it's like, well, this is who I am. This is this is who I've always been, right? But it's like you're choosing and creating to stay in that person, that being, those thoughts, right? But really, even just like a little thought can completely change who you're being. You could be well, I'm just an anxious person. I'm just fat, right? Like that's just who my family is. And it's like, yes, because there's a thought and a belief rooted in it. But if you switched it again, it would create a different being, and then it would create a different action, and then that action would create a different outcome at the end, right? Like, well, if you settle to the belief that I'm just a big guy, I'm just fat, okay, well, you're probably being someone that is either going to be lazy, not accountable, eat whatever they want, because that's just who you are, right? But if you take the thought and belief of, this isn't who I truly am, like I am healthy, abundant, whatever it might be, now you're turning into someone who's being someone different, which will then turn into a different action of eating healthy, maybe going to the gym, maybe doing this. And guess what's going to happen? The outcome's going to be different. At the end, maybe you're still a bigger guy, but it's going to be a different perspective of your body, right? That you have. Again, it kind of goes back to a universal law of relativity. Mm-hmm. I could get a promotion at my job, and I think it's the greatest thing in the world. My wife views it as the worst thing in the world because now I'm spending less time at home, right? The person next to me in a cubicle is like, I should have deserved that, right? Versus Trevor should have got that. So there's so many different perspectives of everything, of one exact situation. There could be 10 of us in one room. One experience happens, and we all have a different perspective based on the thoughts, beliefs, emotions, and who we're being, right, in that moment. So it's really fascinating to think about. Like, everyone's perspective is different, even if you experience the same thing.
It's also very freeing, too.
Mm-hmm.
I hope for everyone to come across that realization. It's a great thing to realize. Because until then, you think that only what you see is real.
Yes.
Then if you understand that if you literally just put yourself over there, and let's say you're all looking at this thing and you put yourself over there, well, you could see exactly why they would say this and that about this thing, because it's completely out of your view. That's just the nature of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great thing to have, to be able to witness. And I agree, we are infinite, and change is also infinite. And that's actually why I stopped saying I have stage fright or I have performance anxiety, because it was a perpetual idea. And instead now I say, well, I have experienced stage fright. I have struggled with it. But that has been a relief of a burden.
Yep. Because it doesn't
sure you do the same thing with your
right now. Yeah. Huh. Like you said, it's in the past, but it doesn't define who you are right now.
Yeah.
Right. And it frees people that way, of like our past experiences, thoughts, beliefs, whatever outcomes actually determine who we're being right now. But who we're being right now doesn't necessarily have to reflect our past experiences, right? You have the power and choice to be somebody different in this moment than you were in the past. That's why when people are like, oh, you changed, man, like you're different. It's like, you should be. I shouldn't be who I was in the past. I should be evolving and growing and doing this stuff. But when people hear that, they're like, oh, I don't want to change, right? I don't want to be an outlier. I don't want to be this. So they stay comfortable, essentially.
Yeah. It's funny, as you were saying that, I was just thinking about how, actually, it was on the last podcast we were talking about sidewalks. And sidewalks in a metaphorical sense of just, you walk the sidewalk, you know where it goes, and you take the same road every time. Personally, I find it a lot more exhilarating to be going somewhere, and I just want to buckle that way. For, I don't know, it's fun. This is out of pure curiosity. How do you feel about sidewalks?
I've never thought about it before. So that would be, I would have to reflect on it. But I mean, really, if you think about it, it's just someone else telling you where to go, right? So it's like, hey, here's this. You can only stay here at the end. And I get like the physical form of it. Hey, stay on the sidewalk so you don't get hit by a car, right? Yeah. But yeah, if you're like in a sidewalk, it's really just telling you, hey, you have to stay here, to a sense. Mm-hmm. Whereas my kids are like, I don't care about the sidewalk. I'm just going anywhere, right? Because they're in like that free state of like, I'm fine. Like I'm this infinite person. I can go anywhere that I want. And that's, again, you get to not just a sidewalk and a street, but to life in general. Hey, you can't, you have to stay here. This is what you have to be, right? And we put people in these boxes. So
yeah,
as you reflect on it, it's interesting. It opens up a different perspective on things, right?
Coming full circle.
Yep.
I love it. Well, I always respect that point of view. Just the freedom. And now seeing kids as, well, an adult, you could say. Mm-hmm. I'll put it this way. Seeing a child from outside, knowing what it was like to be in that state of mind, it's really enlightening, really inspiring.
Mm-hmm. We should be more childlike.
Agree. I've learned so much from, I have a 3-year-old student, and he inspires me every day.
Yep. He doesn't care.
Doesn't care. Not at all.
He has no belief that you're judging him at all. Right. But as an adult, you come in and you're like, oh my God, he's going to judge my voice. He's going to do this. I'm going to feel like this because he's going to say that. And a kid just goes and does it.
Yeah. And he just like makes up stuff. He just creates.
Right.
Just like the pen.
Mm-hmm. It's just creating.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The worst thing is when we refrain from, like, we're not allowed to create. It's an awful feeling.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I have actually, I have 2 more questions for you. Now, as a father, given everything that we've talked about, what is that like for you?
It opens up a whole new world. Yeah. It's, me and my wife reflect on it all the time. and it's each one of our children, again, they're the same child, right? But they each give us a different lesson. So it's our same oldest, but he's teaching her one thing, he's teaching me one thing, but he's doing the same thing in that moment, right? So we're experiencing it again from our own lessons, our own perspective. And it really, kids help you self-reflect, right? But we're told, hey, they have to listen to us. They have to do this. They have to obey. They have to, whatever it is, because we're their parents, and we get caught up in it, as things progress, but it's also like, let them be their unique individual. We have to let them have their own experiences and learn from it. Now we are there to help guide them more so than to rule over them, is what we've found. So, but each one's different. Like, one's like, hey, I don't care what you think of me, right? I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. And we're like, all right, teaching us one thing, another one's more emotional, maybe, another one is like super timid. So they're all teaching you and reflecting stuff inside of you of like, yeah, that's how I felt at that age, or that's how I feel right now, type of thing. Because again, our internal world is just reflected into the external. Kids are just part of it as well, but they're a key to opening some things up.
That's a lot to reflect on.
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. I appreciate your insight.
Yeah.
One question.
Yep.
If there's something that you are working on, or something that you would like to draw awareness to, what would that be?
I would draw awareness to yourself. That's reflect everything on yourself is the most important thing. As we've talked about this is the theme, right? It's you. You're a microcosm of the macro at the end of the day, right? Your thoughts and beliefs are projecting into the world, and that's what you're seeing. So is everyone else's. And that's where it's just become aware of self, beware of you, and everything will change and open up, and it'll give you the freedom to truly live the life you want.
I copy that.
Yep.
Well, Trevor, it's been an amazing conversation. Thank you for taking the time today, and it's been really nice getting to know you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This has been awesome. So I can't be more grateful, appreciative. Hopefully people got, some good information, right? Take it for what information. Don't put 100% invested in it. Do your own research and things like that. But this is just information for everyone else to kind of learn from and take in. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
100%. Agreed. Thank you. We'll be in touch, and thank you so much for watching. Take care.